Yes, I call this meeting to order. Roll call, please, Donna.
Yes, Ms. Miller,
Here.
Ms. Lanning,
Here.
Ms. Williams.
Here.
Ms. Garcia. Here. Mr. Gary.
Present.
Thank you.
Approval of your agenda.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Sure.
I have a
All in
first and a
favor?
second.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right,
Discussion. Ms. Donna, you are up.
that is right. Just to give you a little background, we are doing this because we needed more training and in a better fashion, so I got in touch with MSBA. Of course, they came yesterday and did some board training. But then they highly suggested, instead of having just our new members get with each of the directors, to have a meeting just for that and have them all here at once. So that's what we are doing today. I took their direction from that. What I have to go over, of course, is the essential board training, which Rick and Whitney are already signed up for, so that is good. They're well on their way. Rick will get his at the meetings in June. And I think you're signed up in July, is that right? Okay. And just as a reminder to all of you, you also have that 1 hour of training each year due up, and I think you guys just did it, because I just checked. Most of it is usually during the fall when they have their meetings in the fall, they'll go over it then, so you're usually pretty good. We do have our nepotism documents that I do need you guys to fill out, because I know it changes. You gain members of your family and you lose members of your family, and you'd like to lose members of your family. Doesn't always go that way, but we have to keep these on file. So if you wouldn't mind filling these out again, I would appreciate it. And signing it and giving them back to me. That's part of my duty. This also goes for, if you were to have somebody in the school district that is related to you in voting processes, if they are working for the district, you would need to abstain from those votes if they were on any documents.
What if they're like in law? Does that count? Okay.
In-laws still count.
Can I write on the back?
I think you're all pretty well aware of how the agenda is pulled together. I know you guys give me a lot of credit for what is on there, but I don't do it. These people behind you all do that. I assist them if they need help, but they do a good job of putting their items that they need approved on the agenda. And I might clean it up a little bit, but other than that, they're very good at it. And if anything else that you all want put on the agenda, it needs to feed through LaTanya. And then LaTanya will talk to Gabe and I about putting it on the agenda at the agenda review meeting, which we have the week prior to our board meeting. We go over the whole agenda and then get it set, and then I post it after that, so you guys have a week to go over that, look at it. We started doing this so you guys would have time to look at it and be prepared before the meeting. So you need to do that. And something that Kim didn't realize and that Rick didn't realize, when we approved the scholarships, the scholarships were hidden. And so that way the public couldn't see them, because we didn't want to get them out so the kids didn't know ahead of time before they were awarded that. The reason they couldn't see it was because they had not actually signed into Simply. So I always tell you, sign into Simply, because there could be items in there hidden that we are keeping hidden for just you to see until after the board meeting, and then we will open them up. So just kind of keep that in mind. There may be stuff hidden in there that you don't know unless you're signed in. Communication between the board members, they went over that yesterday, so I think you're pretty well versed on that. The only thing I would say is, like they did, stay away from texting. The only time that I will text you guys if it's something that I need back immediately, you know, so try not to do that, because you know what? I have to go through and screenshot every single one of those things and send it in here because it's sunshineable. So just kind of keep that in mind. People get kind of free willy with their texting, myself included. And that's all I have. Do any of you have any questions about that? Good deal.
Is it me?
It's you.
Okay. All right, just a couple things from my standpoint. The first thing is the process of communication between the board and the superintendent. I have an open door policy. You guys can come in and visit with me anytime. Just had a 30-minute meeting with Kim before this meeting. So, I mean, just as an example, Latanya and I meet every Friday. So if anybody wants to come in and set up a meeting with me anytime, that's fine. As far as my communication, I've kind of changed. Obviously, you know that, we'll talk about that here in just a second, the assistant superintendents send out a weekly update, and I'm going to talk to Eileen about the request for communications as well. I used to do the same thing, and I stopped doing that because it seemed like a lot of it was crossover to what Ashley was saying, or to what Brian was saying, or to what Robert was saying, and I needed to communicate more. So if there's something you need to know, then I just send you an email at that time. And if you guys are good with that, I think I'll just continue to do that, because, you know, like, I'll just send you on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever. I mean, if there's something you need to know, then there's something you need to know. It doesn't need to wait until Friday. So that's the way we're going to continue to do it, as long as you guys are okay with that. The board to staff, same thing. I mean, you can reach out to them anytime that you want to. You will continue to get reports from the 3 assistant superintendents and from Eileen moving forward, from the communications department moving forward. And if there's something else you want to see or that you want to know, just let us know. I know that what I used to do when I was the assistant superintendent, I would have Mickey or Robert, I guess it would be Shannon now in his position, like every other month, they would be the ones. So I would get a statement from them to send out, so you're not just hearing from the same person every time. So you're hearing from everybody in that department. And I know Academic Services does that now. She gets feedback from everybody all the time. So you're getting notes from DLO, you're getting notes from Stacia, Lara, Bethany, whoever. So as long as you guys are okay with that, then we'll continue to go that route. Does anybody have any concern in regards to that? And then board to media, let's talk about that for a second. Yeah.
Can we go back to that
Yeah.
last one? So the only thing that I guess I just want to talk briefly about is if board members, and we talked a little bit about this yesterday, but if board members are going to staff, the only thing that concerns me about that is if I go to Dr. Kraus and 3 other people go and we're all going about something different, or, you know, if we go to Ashley, like, I don't know if we need like a more streamlined process, because
No,
I've asked for it 3 times.
My fault, I maybe misunderstood. I was talking about communications from us to you,
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
not communications from you. No, now if you want to go talk to
'Cause-
a specific person, then you need to come to me first, and then we can decide
Right.
how we want to go about that.
Because it was also, I was also thinking about, like, I want to be really careful to not make the staff uncomfortable.
Yeah,
And
well, we'll talk about
I
that.
think at times that they could be uncomfortable.
Uh-huh.
And so I would like a better,
So what I would ask is if you want to talk to any of the staff members that work for me, then just tell me, say, hey, Gabe, I'd like to talk to Dr. Kraus, and this is what it's about, and then I'll get it set up for you.
Gabe, everybody works for you.
Yeah. So, but you understand what I'm saying, and
Yeah.
then that way that they know, I just don't want them to get caught off guard either, you know, I mean, I'm here
Yeah.
to protect them, so. You know, it's not like you can't have a conversation with them, I'm not saying that, I'm just saying if you have a concern or something you want to visit with them about in regards to their position or their job, then-
Well, I think even sometimes asking for certain reports or certain information, I wouldn't want the same, 7 board members of
Asking
going
the
out.
same 7 different questions.
Even asking for the
Same
same stuff,
question,
or
yeah.
asking about the same topic for different things,
Yeah.
like just some sort of streamlined process
Okay.
that, if it goes to Latanya and then Latanya to you, or just to you, because I think that's the other thing that I've kind of seen too, is if I go through the board packet and send my questions, I send them to you, but Latanya, the rest of the board doesn't know what I'm asking, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like, how to clean that
I
up.
But
actually-
to
Make it
begin to also
easier.
give them over to me as well, and I like that. I like knowing about the questions and everything like that too.
So whenever we respond, then you would want us to respond to all 7, and we're good with that.
I don't
We're good
know,
with
if
that. And
that's
actually,
easiest.
Kenny's brought that up a couple of times to me. He's had concerns before that, hey, if you're sending something back to David or to whoever, why can't you send it to me as well? And we can, if you want me, I am totally good with that. So let's just start doing that. So if you guys send questions, you're not the only one who does, but you do send more, but, no, I'm kidding. No, it's
And
good,
better.
I'm just kidding. But, then we'll just respond to everybody.
Thank you.
And don't forget.
And obviously, you know that
You
what
have to
I,
copy me on all of your correspondence. You've got all 7 of you, you've got to have me on that.
that's a good point, I think
I
that.
couldn't believe it
that'll
hasn't been
help
like that.
Huh?
I couldn't believe for the last 2 years it hasn't been like that.
us. I knew, that's why I brought
Because
that up.
that leads right to the very issue, is that 7 of us didn't go ask the same question to the same person.
Yeah.
Right.
That we don't get the answer.
Get it?
Yeah.
I don't have to ask a lot of questions, you let everybody else ask questions, you're gonna answer mine, ask them.
So
True.
clarify that for me, that if we have a question over these reports we get on Friday, or we're preparing for the board, we have to send those through you, and we can't, because I've just returned and asked questions to Jenny, or anyone else who has sent that to me with the information, so that's where I respond. So I'm supposed to not do that anymore, I'm supposed to come through
Yeah.
you or
Because
Latanya?
we do have that contact, so this is who you contact
Right.
regarding this.
But but
So-
Gabe's our own, I think it goes back to Gabe's our only employee, and I just think if I was in Gabe's position and you're asking my staff a question, I wanna know that you had that question so that we're all on the same page of how it was answered.
Well,
of-
maybe what we can do is a board member can include all of the 7 board members and send that question to the contact. That way, when they answer, then we all know what the
I don't
answer
think
is.
that's
What do you
that's
think, Gabe?
appropriate.
Do
I
we
just
need to
look
do
at
that
it
with
like-
you as?
We
as
have
in
one
charge of
employee,
that?
Okay, but this is the way that we've been doing it for a while.
and that doesn't make it right.
I know, but sometimes your perspective is like, well, if I was Gabe, but the way that we've been doing it is working, and there's a reason
I
there's a
don't think it is
contact
working.
person for that agenda item.
He's our employee.
I understand.
Can I speak real quick?
Yeah,
I mean, I'm looking at it from 2 different ways. I work under a board, and if there are board members emailing over to my staff, I'm gonna wanna know about it. And then on the other hand, the staff at times are uncomfortable, and they do have concerns and issues, and I want to get our questions answered and then get the staff more comfortable. And I'm just looking to get a process that
streamline.
everybody's able to do, to where everything's kind of better. Like, I understand it's always been like a particular kind of way, but I don't think that that is working well anymore
I guess I see,
from the staff.
I guess I see both sides of it, but like the other day, I sent Ashley a text just asking, I just wasn't sure of the populations of each high school. And that just seems a little overkill for her
Yeah.
to send that out to
I don't
everybody
think
because
that's
I
a-
asked.
No, I wanna know that too.
I don't think it's, I think there are some things, you know, when we're out in the public and somebody says something, you're like, that doesn't sound right. So I don't think it's a big deal to say, hey, what's that population, so I don't look like an idiot right now. I don't think that's that. I think when we're talking about the board packet, or you're saying, I want, that DLR report that we just went over.
Yeah, I guess I would just wanna know where the
Well, my
line- where the
perspective
line
is, I think that's more caught off guard for the admin to get that text, instead of, I put this item on the agenda and I'm that contact person, so I'm already kind of, I already know that I'm gonna get questions regarding this item. So it's more of invasive to send a text and say, hey, what's the population of this? They might be cooking dinner, they might be
Oh, I
at
don't.
a kid's game or something.
Right.
So I think when they put something on the agenda and they are put as a contact person, then it says, these board members are going to ask me a question, we're gonna answer them. And I don't see anything wrong with that, and I understand your perspective, but I think if it was coming from Gabe, or maybe the admin, then it'd be like, okay, but if it's coming from other board members, then I don't see why we should change it.
But the thing about it is that it is coming from admin and staff.
Well, how?
People have approached me about the issues, about the contact of the board members.
Okay, well, I
And
wasn't
it
made
makes
aware of
them-
that.
It's how come I'm letting everybody know. And so,
And I don't think that the expectation is that Gabe knows everything, because we all know he doesn't. But,
What I do
no
is support.
shade.
but, and
No
he,
shade.
I'll second that motion.
I'll second that motion.
But my point is, as the superintendent, he
Let's take a
needs
vote.
to be involved in what's happening with his staff. You know, I'm not ever gonna go meet with his staff, and he just sees me coming in the building, like, where are you going? Oh, I'm gonna go meet with Ashley, like, no, I don't need to, I don't necessarily know that you need to be there if you don't want to, but you need to know what's going on.
Yeah.
and then I also think it's like a common sense kind of thing. I mean, if it's like a little easy question,
Yeah.
a text or like an individual email, I think is appropriate. Okay, but if it's actual work for the staff in order to do, if you're asking to get like good information, I guess, I mean, and then also it's easiest, I think, on the staff answering it one time and not 7 different times.
I agree. Okay, so would this say that if it's something that, that is going to be time consuming for a staff member, then it needs to come through me?
So if I have questions over the financial report, and it has, even though it has Jenny's name there, I need to let you know that I have, that I'm asking about this, this, and this, or,
Just copy him
Just
and
CC
copy
everybody
all the
that.
board.
and Jenny, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, just copy it.
Okay,
Because that's where it's gonna go to anyway.
Yeah,
okay.
You know, as people ask questions, I'm gonna be able to answer probably 1 out of the 7, but, I mean, that's how it's gonna work.
that way
but-
then you can still direct it to whomever you know, is going to take care of that, that he's in the know of what's
And that-
going
And that
on.
also creates that if you didn't like the answer that you got, or you felt like there was a problem with something.
Yeah.
Then our only employee is not caught off guard to what.
Right.
Like, you know, because if he's not involved in the conversation, then by the end of it, he's like, I don't have any idea, I'm getting caught up here, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have a problem with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Those, mine were just over
Yeah.
what we receive. and-
Bills and stuff.
Yeah, not a problem.
Okay. All right, board to media, this is one I wanted to talk to you guys about a little bit too. Mr. Foster's not here, but he was, we had it in the past, this has caused some animosity, I'm not gonna sit here and sugarcoat things. I don't care how the board talks to the media, it doesn't make any difference to me, I guess I shouldn't say that. Maybe that's
Publicly.
a little loose, but, it doesn't make any difference to me whether you want to interview with KQ2. I'm just, but Eileen needs to know. So if you're gonna have some kind of a, some sort of communication with media, then it needs to go through Eileen and go through me. Now, it doesn't make any difference, Latanya, if you want to keep it to where the board president is the only spokesperson of the board. That's where the animosity had come from in the past. So we need to talk about this one. It's solely up to you guys. However you guys want to take this, I'm gonna leave it up to you, but I just know that other board members have concerns in regards to this topic.
I think that the animosity came because a lot of times it was not a collective thought of everyone on the board. It was mainly, I'm speaking as everybody else, only it is only my thoughts. And I think that that was the main issue. I mean, a board has a president to speak for the board.
No.
In my opinion, though, it is not only the president's words, it is all of our words all together.
And I think that's important. You make a good point there. And I think if it is collective, then I think it probably would go, it's gonna be seamless. You know, and I'm not trying to, however you guys choose to communicate with the media, that's up to you. You know, I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you how to do it, but Eileen can help you with that. And, I mean, you just don't wanna be too loose with the situation. You really don't.
And then I also agree,
It
I
can
mean,
spin out of control really fast.
I think that everybody's able to speak. Just, if it's only Kim speaking, I'm only speaking for myself.
Yeah.
But I
And
think
then
that when
Kim's
we
thought.
had that conversation yesterday with MSBA, that makes it really difficult, because you're never not a board member.
Mm-hmm.
So I can never go out and say, I totally disagree with this X, Y, Z, because I'm always a board member, so.
And that's what the media's
I
gonna
think
try
that
to do,
also
so like
goes for,
whenever,
sorry, go ahead.
like, I mean, and you guys have been in these situations before, that's the first person the media is going to attack. So if it's a
Right.
5-2 vote, they're coming to the people that are
The two.
Or the
against.
two.
Whether it, okay? And that's what they want, and that's what they wanna feed on. So,
Well, and we talked
I would
a
just be
little bit-
careful, just be careful.
We talked about that yesterday, about the duty of obedience and loyalty, of saying, okay, when you get done and you didn't agree, then how do you respond? And maybe that's something that Eileen, you know, can kind of help us with, of like, okay, when you disagree, don't go blast the topic, because now you have the duty of carrying it out, so don't sabotage it.
I think we also have to, if we're gonna do if you're a board member all the time, then social media is one of those platforms. So if we're commenting on certain groups, whether we're there to clarify or not, that still is not a good look either. So
To
if we're
comment
gonna-
correctly or
if
just
we're-
comment at all?
Just comment at all. If we're commenting on a group that we know is watching over our district and we're trying to clarify or say what our stance is, that we're also coming off as a board member, so we have to be consistent of everything. If we're gonna do media, then we have to do social media as well.
So again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't talk to the media, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't educate the community about what's going on. So I would disagree with that.
I just think we need to be people of integrity. People who are kind and transparent, but integrity, which means it's not about us, it's about us as a group, not our opinion doesn't outweigh anybody else's. So integrity goes a long way. So if we can't be kind with each other, if we can't be selfless with each other, then just be quiet. Just be quiet.
Yeah, in a sense, since we are collectively kind of one, but we have our own opinions, if it's something that's 6-1 and I'm the lone one who didn't agree, and then Marcus comes up to me afterwards, we need to be respectful. Look, I was the one, I disagreed with the vote, but you know what, we're gonna still work together and try to make this work. But for me to come on there and be like, I don't know what the other 6 are thinking there, their heads up their ass, this is stupid, like, I think that's just I mean, I think we just have to, we're adults here, we just have to kind of
I
know
don't
the
think anyone has
situation.
done that.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah,
I don't
but I'm
think
just saying,
anyone's
I
never seen
think
that
we need to
either.
make sure that we're,
Kidding.
if everybody's gonna have a, you know,
I agree, Rick, and it's hard, like about the masking.
Yeah. I was just getting ready to bring that
Well,
up.
and-
I was all alone, and then people were like calling me, emailing me and everything, and I just ignored everybody. I just didn't answer anybody. I mean,
Well, and you're in an emotional
because it was nothing to
state.
say.
Okay, so
It was just easier to be
I don't
quiet.
think this particular conversation, we need to be exposing our underbellies as much to staff. They've got other things to talk to us about
Yeah.
here besides this issue. But the very thing we've been talking about this whole time, the most, and I was here on time, but I wanted to sit in the parking lot and listen to what was being said about us, about a fellow board member. So, that person here, now, that's why we're so discombobulated. Because now, this person did hear this whole entire discussion. And possibly David was a very important set of years in this room when we just had this discussion. But now, you know, it's gone, it's done, it's passed. He'll hear it a different way. So,
If he looks at the video, I mean,
okay.
Dr. Edward?
Yeah, let's
I
move
know what he
on.
means.
Let's see. Chain of command and procedures for responding to concerns from patrons and staff. I think they probably covered a little bit of this yesterday. One thing that we do struggle with this, the downtown administration struggles because of some of the communications that board members have. And what happens is, it creates a false narrative, and by the time it gets back to us, then we have to be the ones that are picking the story apart and trying to explain to board members what is the truth. And I think this is easy. I really think it's simple. If you have a concern from a staff or a parent, then you ask them if they've talked to the building principal, or you ask them that if they've talked to whoever was affected by that, or who it would affect. And then if they don't like the building principal, then they move to, you know, Lara or Bethany or Lacey. And if they don't like that, then they move to Ashley. And if they don't like that, then they move to me. And I think we really need to live by that, because it'll create a lot less issues, it'll create a lot less animosity amongst all of us in this room here today. Parents are free in this district. They've been allowed to
Go straight to the top.
go straight to the top all the time, and so that's kind of the way that, and I'm terrible, guys, I'll be honest with you, because I give everybody the time of day, and I shouldn't, but I do. And,
I was just about to call you out on that too.
yeah, I do, you know, and it's a fault, and they know that, and it frustrates these guys behind you too, because they're like, why are you talking about that?
And if you
yeah.
think it's easier to tell them to call the superintendent's office, tell them to, it's fine, because you know what, Cassie and I are gonna screen them. We're gonna do that, we protect him, we don't just send them through, so.
So we shouldn't be giving out a cell phone.
Don't give out his cell phone number.
They brought
But
up
give out the building number, and Cassie and I will get that call, and
Okay.
we'll screen them.
They brought up a great analogy yesterday, talking about that, and they kind of likened it to if you're a helicopter over a fire, you want to stay in that helicopter. Like, I know our instinct a lot of times is trying to get out,
Yeah.
get down on the ground, and now you don't see the whole picture as much. But as hard as it is, we need to follow that chain of command, stay in the helicopter, and
Yep.
look at it from
Well, it
that.
just creates a lot of miscommunication.
It
Like,
does.
they said this, and then by the time it gets back to that building principal, there's hurt feelings, the story has changed 50 times.
Yeah. So, and one thing that we are gonna concentrate on a little bit is, we're gonna try to come up with ways, talk administratively, probably bring you guys some ideas on how to protect, our employees against, disgruntled parents. You know, it's okay to have communications, but it's not okay for us to have communications where people are cussing at us, or people are, you know, knocking us down all the time. And so those conversations have started amongst us, and we'll be bringing some stuff to the board to, just some ideas on how we can address those issues. Because I think you can treat those types of parents just like you would just like you would a fan at a basketball game, you know, that cusses out the referee or that says something to the coach. That we are the referee, we are the coach, and they shouldn't treat us like that. So I've sent a lot of emails to LaTanya. She's going to review some stuff, but I think we really do need to make sure that we keep that under control. And it's back to me, you know, because I've given people too much time. That's my fault. So, but yeah, chain of command is big. Procedures for visiting schools. Really, you guys have access to all the buildings, all the schools. We just ask that you do the same thing that every other person does when they go in. You know, you go through the Raptor deal, you type in your name. If you are going to be with students, one-on-one, which I doubt if any of you guys will be in that situation, then you do need to have a background check. That is per board policy, but if not, you can go in and out as you see fit. Just make sure that you do the Raptor thing.
Wouldn't you ask them to give the building principal a heads up, though, that they're coming?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, probably always go to the office,
Yeah.
not just like.
Yeah,
roll them
well, you would
off.
have to get in anyway.
The Raptors in the office and.
Because as Susan said yesterday, you scare the poo out of those people, and you do. If you just show up,
You
they're
can
like,
tell. You can
why are
tell.
they here? And then I get a phone
Like,
call,
hi.
why are they here?
And you can have an individual conversation with the student, you just can't be alone.
Right, alone, right. You guys have anything on that? What do you want from them on that? You guys are the building leaders.
As a former leader, I would say at least 24-hour notice that you're gonna be there. That way, we know if we have something on our calendar and you're gonna need something from us.
Good point.
Anything else? Okay. All right, procedures for seeking advice from legal counsel. One thing that I would ask, if you want to talk to the school attorney, just call me and let me know that you want to talk to the school attorney. I know that that's what they want. They will not talk to anybody but the board president or myself unless they have permission to talk to the other board members.
I was gonna add, I'd like to know too.
Yeah, can we, so,
I know, and I don't understand, that's just their rule.
no,
That's it.
I don't have a problem with that rule, I
Uh-huh.
think that's a great rule. I just wouldn't want there to be one-offs of a board member. I mean, I just don't see why a board member would wanna talk to the attorney outside of
About anything
collective,
really.
well, outside of collectively as the board going to the attorney.
Nobody has, and that's why, I think that's why they have it in place. I've had a couple of people contact me, and just in my time, and I've deferred to them. They did not end up talking to the school attorney, just because there was no reason to talk to the school attorney. And I think that's the purpose behind it, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And then expectation regarding board participation at district and community events, you guys are great. There's nothing for me to say about that. I mean, all 7 of you, as Ashley mentioned, showed up to the graduation. I think that was the first time in a long time. You guys are very supportive of all of the events, and so we couldn't be happier. And I think it goes a long ways. People notice that. You know, the staff notices that, the parents notice that, we notice that, so we appreciate that. So just continue to do what you're doing as far as that's concerned. Any specific questions for me? Who's next?
Robert, Dr. Severs.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, I know. They did me early today to get the painful one over with, I think, so.
Oh, you made a PowerPoint.
I did.
I did too, I just forgot to put it up there.
Gave me a PowerPoint.
This is my PowerPoint.
Cartoon show on Saturday.
You don't know how to do a PowerPoint, you come ask.
It is a very basic PowerPoint,
I taught
I
business.
promise you that. Let's see if I can figure out how to get it up there. Going to East Commons. Is that right? With the East Commons here?
I think yesterday I tried to,
Or with the South Commons?
no, I tried the,
Or the Samsung 7?
one that said, VA Commons, I thought that I could look
Gabe, is there another graduation ceremony?
Yes, I'm glad you said that because I was gonna bring that up.
For Webster?
Yeah, what's?
It's in July.
July something.
It's this Saturday, July, July 8th.
Yeah.
July 8th?
July
July 8th.
July 8th at 11 o'clock.
Is it Keely?
That'd be a good, yeah, it'd be a good one for you guys to show up at. I appreciate you asking.
Is that Webster?
Yeah,
I think it's a Keely.
It's at Keatley.
It's a Keely,
Okay.
Keely Center on
Okay.
28th and
Oh,
Mitchell.
okay.
They used to have, yeah, they moved it there. They used to have it in
July
a bigger
8th.
church. but-
Yeah. Time?
11.
11.
All right, awesome. Thank you.
What was it called?
The Webster graduation.
Allow. Well,
Yeah, that is a good one.
that's not my screen, though.
Free screen.
If it's Missouri Options and AEL, it's all at the same time. They're there.
Is it July
Uh-huh.
Maybe I keep it
On my
right.
calendar.
Keely Center.
Day of the week is that?
Saturday.
Makes sense.
What time is David coming?
No. He had work obligations. I like your haircut.
That's disappointing. Disappointing. Spend an hour on the radio.
Well, you know what? I can just send
Radio,
this
but
all to
can't
you
come to our
guys.
meeting? I don't get it.
That's what I get for trying to be technological here. Now, I
It
can,
yesterday. It wasn't just you.
now it won't let me
Maybe
get back out of it.
I do too. I eat lunch.
I did escape it.
This is deja vu, isn't it, Donna?
But you should do it online. You should do a virtual one, just take a picture and post it.
Because I had two
Let's just do this.
brand new briefcases.
Well, Gabe, you're supposed to talk. Gabe's supposed to talk a little longer, I guess.
What's that? Mine was only 5 minutes.
No.
Facebook would probably be easiest.
I know, that's why you don't need it. Yeah, Don printed out at 8:25, right before you get ready to roll out the door.
All right, well,
That's good. I have one ready too.
I don't know how you can do that. I've like.
There you spend all that time and
I
it's not even gonna
I
work
can't
for you.
change.
you know what? I think maybe this is what you
Like,
have.
it would look extra crazy, like if I was carrying a black bag in this number.
Yeah, totally.
Exactly, so I was like,
Everyone remembers.
Well, I'm just gonna talk about it. I'll send this to you all. So, really, there were 4 things they kind of asked me to talk about today from an overview of finance. Budget development and approval process, financial status and the proportionality of funding, our bond indebtedness and the district audit, and then the ASBR, the annual Secretary of the Board report. So, talk a little bit about purchases. I do want to mention that to you because that question comes up quite a bit. For a purchase to be made, it has to be within the approved budget, and then the principal or the supervisor approves that. Once the principal or supervisor approves it, and then it comes down to the business office for sign off, and so it goes through about 3 or 4 levels before it gets approved. Anything up to $10,000, board policy changed last year. Anything up to $10,000, that is that person's discretion, that principal's discretion, or that department chair or department leader's discretion. We ask people to kind of try to spread that around within the community as much as you can. Anything from 10 to 50,000, that has to have 3 quotes, okay? So, if you have a $25,000 purchase, you don't necessarily, you aren't limited on who you can pick, but you've got to have 3 quotes to look at there. And generally, we'll want you to go with the cheapest one. There might be a good reason why, if 2 are really close, you might go with one or the other, but Need 3 quotes or bids for anything from 10 to 50. Anything over 50,000, you all will have to approve, okay? That has to have sealed bids. That either has to go through like an RFQ or an RFP process, and you'll see us bring those to you
Can you
periodically.
say that again? Sorry.
Anything over $50,000 has to be approved by you,
Okay.
okay? And it has to go through an RFP or an RFQ process. We have to do sealed bids with that and everything. So anytime we have something that's gonna be over 50,000, that will end up coming to you for approval.
Your sealed bids don't, when you open them, they don't have to go, you don't necessarily have to go with the lowest price.
You do, it says the best, I forget how this is phrased, it's worded a little bit funny. There is an option to be able to go with a local bid, if it is, deemed to be in the best interest of the district. And actually, this is probably something that we need to look at from a policy standpoint, because it says if it's within $1,000 of the lowest bid. Well, if we're talking about $55,000 as opposed to $550,000, $1,000 is not very much on that $550,000 bid. So we may want to go back and look at putting that as a percentage. A lot of districts, I think, have that as a percentage.
Yeah, that's what I was just getting ready to say. Robert and I talked about this, and I think we do need to look at that and probably make it like 10% or 5% or something like that if they're within. And it's just to protect your local people.
It's to give some preference for local companies.
10% is probably high. You know, if you go 1.6 million on a project,
Right.
and you don't want to let them $160,000, you don't want to have.
But it's phrased kind of weird. It says lowest or best bid.
Yeah.
So that gives you some flexibility in that. If, this may be the lowest bid, but this company we've worked with, it's not been a very good process with them. They were behind on deadlines, or the quality of stuff wasn't good. You don't necessarily have to go with them if you determine as a board that that one is the best bid. So it's a little bit, the language is a little bit flexible there if you've had some issues like that with the vendor. Yep.
Do you know the policy number?
Something in D, I'll go look at it, I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
I'll put it, actually, I'll go put it in on that PowerPoint when I send it to you.
Thanks.
And then all purchases, we include those in the monthly reports that you get as a board. When people talk about transparency, we need to be more transparent. I don't know how we would be more transparent with our purchases.
Thank you.
There's not one purchase that gets made that isn't listed in that monthly report every month. Now, does anybody want to go dig through all those? Because we do have a lot of purchases over the course of a month with 25 different websites. But they're all there, and you will approve those every month. Any questions about purchases?
Is there and I don't know that you can answer this, but just my short time on the board, it seems like when we look at stuff and we're like, oh, we put some bids out and like we got 2 bids back or we got 3, like, is there a reason we don't get a whole lot of, it just seems like we don't get very many bids back on stuff.
Because like everybody else, people have and they have employees right now. And it goes in cycles sometimes. For example, the roofing bids here 2 months ago, we got 3 bids. And the roofing bids have become pretty competitive right now. In fact, we came in under $200,000 under budget on that. Asphalt bids right now are not competitive. Herzog doesn't want to mess with a small parking lot job.
I was just getting ready to say that. I had a conversation with somebody and same question, you know, and I said, what? They said they don't want any part of it anymore. They used to bid it.
Yeah.
And I asked why. They don't.
And lots of times when they bid it,
Don't
then
wanna
they would
deal with
sub
it.
it out anyway. It's just,
So what happens is if Herzog would get that bid, then Keller was getting the work anyway.
and so now Keller's bidding, taking the middle out right now. Sometimes Kansas City companies bid, they've got plenty of work down there, and it's not cost effective for them to send a crew all the way up here to do an $80,000 parking lot.
Just want to make sure it wasn't on our end.
Yeah,
People,
no,
I
it's,
don't want, you don't want to mess with school.
no,
districts.
and, you know, if we know vendors are out there, we'll reach out to them if we haven't gotten very many bids, but, it's kind of cyclical. But right now, there's more work than there are employees for a lot of our construction businesses. And so, again, the roofing thing has kind of come back a little bit for us a little bit, so we're getting a little more competitive there. The asphalt, like I said the other night, the bids were more expensive. One of the things that drives that is the price of oil. And sorry, you asked a question the other night about getting a breakdown. We don't get a breakdown on a bid of what's labor and what's materials, because they give us an overall bid. So how they break that out as a company, that's up to them. We just get an end of the day price. And so if they bid $100,000 and it's 60,000 in materials and 40 labor, that's how they figured it. If they do 40 materials and 60 labor, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter to us because our cost is 100 either way. So
You guys don't get like a receipt that says, this is how much you paid for the asphalt, this is how much you paid for the.
we pay whatever the bid amount was. They don't break that out though.
They just invoice you
They just
for the
invoice
job.
us for what the job is, the total job.
Okay, and then.
Because it might be, and, you know, obviously the asphalt wouldn't fit this, but something might be a two-person company that does a job for us. Well, their labor may be really small, but they may be charging more on the materials. A company that's larger may be able to buy materials in bulk and have a much cheaper materials cost, but their labor's gonna be more expensive. So at the end of the day, we just get the total bid amount. So that was a good question you asked the other night, but that's why you don't see that like that. We just get a total, what's the total cost of the job, and how they break it out between their labor and materials, we don't see, but it doesn't really matter to us because it's all about what does it cost us at the end. If that makes sense.
Are we still on procurement? Is that, I don't know, is that where we're at? I don't wanna jump ahead with questions.
Oh, we were just talking, we finished up talking about purchasing.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, so you have centralized and decentralized procurement, depending on the total price of what they're buying.
Right.
So they have some ability at the buildings to purchase. How are those reconciled? Are they reconciled receipt to, like, they send all the receipts in?
Mhm,
And then you
everything.
guys compare them to this
Their
monthly
bookkeeper
statement?
sends it in to
Okay.
the business office.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah. So, and again, their principal has to make sure that they're within their budget before
Yeah.
they spend any money.
Yep.
Any other question about purchasing? Financial status, talk a little bit about fund balances. Board policy states that our unrestricted fund balance for the district on June 30th has to be at least 20% of the expenditures for our funds from the prior fiscal year. The original budget we brought to you for fiscal year '23, we were projecting an unrestricted fund balance of 23.71, so above what our policy states. When we brought you back an amendment in February, we really thought that was going to be up to 27.37. That number's probably gonna be a little closer to 26.9, I think, which is still up from what we had budgeted at the beginning of the year. But some additional expenses have come up. Frozen step, for example, that's gonna eat in pretty good to that $1 million surplus I thought we were gonna have. We've had some additional water line repairs this year. Some HVAC repairs have been a little more expensive this year, but we kind of took care of a lot of those with that February amendment, so. But right now, I think we're gonna come in about 26.9% as a fund balance, which again, pretty good shape above what our policy states. Let's talk a little bit about funding proportionality. Question a lot of people ask, where do we get our money from? We use fiscal year '22, just because it's all complete, and I can tell you exact percentages from that. About a little over 44% of our funding comes from local money. So for fiscal year '22, that was $71.1 million. 31% comes from state, so that was about $50.3 million last year. 22.18% last year, which was about 35.7. I want to make a note about that. That is not normal for us to get that high of a percentage of federal funding, okay? Our percentages are going to be skewed for a couple of years because of the ESSER dollars. And so normally that's going to be a much lower percentage from federal money. But because of that ESSER money and those HVAC projects we've been doing, that percentage is much higher right now. And then the county, about 2.47%. That was about $3.98 million last year. Okay, so that's where our funding comes from those four entities there. Talked a little bit about debt. At the end of our fiscal year this year, our debt's gonna be 30.9 million, our bond indebtedness. The amount of bond debt we can have is limited by statute, okay? And it's limited by the amount of assessed valuation we have. So if our community said tomorrow, hey, we wanna go out, we wanna build 2 brand-new high schools, and we want you to go out and put $250 million in bonds out, we can't do that. Okay, even if the committee says we want to do it, and we all agree to do it, because you can't have bonded debt of any more than 15% of your assessed valuation. This is why Branson, Hamilton, some places like that, they're able to do some of those things because their assessed valuation is so much. And not to get too far into the weeds, but assessed valuation, commercial property is assessed at 31% of its value. Residential is at 19%, and agriculture is at 11%. So if I have a $3 million farm, okay, $3 million worth of agricultural land, that roughly, from a tax basis, is about the same as 1 million of commercial property, okay, because of that ratio. So Branson, it's almost entirely commercial property. You get down to Lake of the Ozarks, almost entirely commercial property. Liberty, a lot of commercial property down there. St. Joseph, not as much, okay? Some of your rural school areas around here, a lot of agricultural property, so their assessed valuation is not as high. So kind of a little background there on how assessed valuation is determined there. Our assessed valuation, the beginning of this fiscal year was about 1.19 billion, okay? It sounds like a lot, but we can only have 15% of that. That's our debt capacity. So our maximum debt capacity is about 179 million. So we have some room there, okay? We have the ability to take on some more debt right now because we're 30.9 at the end of this year. But the maximum we could go up to is that 179 right now. We anticipate that assessed valuation will continue to grow a little bit. I've actually reached out to the assessor to try to get some ballpark as we're building budgets. When I talked to him, they were really, really busy with their earlier in the year stuff, and so that's another conversation we'll be having. But that's where we were at the end of at the beginning of this year. Any questions about that? I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers out here. The district audit, per statute, board policy, we do an audit of our basic financial statements. We are required to have that done by an outside agency each year. KPM from Springfield has done that audit for us for the last several years, and we just brought you an RFP for a new auditor, and they were awarded the contract again here just a couple months ago, so it'll be the auditor for the next 3 years. In our most recent audit, they identified no deficiencies in internal control over financial reporting that they considered to be a material weakness. Okay, so there wasn't any red flag. They went, hey, this is a problem. Okay. Copies of that audit report, we shared those with the board at that time. You're welcome. If you would like some light reading, I'll be happy to give you a copy, or you can come by the business office and share it with you. I believe that audit's also posted on the webpage too. The ASBR, the Annual Secretary of the Board Report. I don't know why Donna doesn't present this, and she's the Secretary of the Board, but the ASBR is required by a section of statute. I'm not going to read you all the numbers in the RSMO there, but we have to submit that to DESE each year by August 15th. The ASBR contains lots and lots and lots of information. Revenues, expenditures, fund balances, debt, transportation data, and all this information is used by the state for data comparisons, for calculations, for data requests, things like that. Some examples of what the state uses this information for, our local effort calculation, which then helps set what our levy is a little bit, the current expenditure calculation, report card information, and federal reporting information. So the ASBR is a large stack of paper, but any expenditure, any revenue, all those things are listed in there, in what accounts they are going to financially. So big piece. You'll see when we do board reports, probably the updates from the business office from about July to the middle of August, it'll be weekly, that working on the ASPR, because it's a pretty big document. That's the last thing I have. If you have questions, anytime they come up, me, probably if you really want an answer, Jenny Powers or Katie Knight, because you probably contact me and then I'll go to Jenny or Katie and try to find out what the real answer is. Katie, thankfully, will be back from maternity leave next Wednesday. So the district managed, we didn't run it into the dock while she was gone. But we'll be really glad to have her back. Jenny's been really great while Katie's been gone helping out. So I'll send you guys this PowerPoint. I will go find that board policy and put that on there on that page.
I appreciate it, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna have Mr. Nolte slide in front of Dr. Kraus because I need him to go to Missouri Western for me.
Well, there you go. Any way I can get moved up, I guess I'll get moved up. I'm hoping I don't miss lunch, so that's a big thing. So, well, I did have a PowerPoint as well, so, but, I won't try to mess with it and just get, I did send it to Donna, and so you guys can have this. There's a couple links inside, and I sent those as separate attachments just in case the links don't work, so. But basically, I was asked to talk about a couple different things here. Safety and security highlights. I don't know what question you might have, but obviously, we talked about the dual secure entrances in every building. We have all the buildings now updated with cameras, the new IP cameras. There's more cameras than were ever in buildings before for security purposes. And that's all buildings, elementary, middle, high, Webster, Hilliard. We have the vape detectors, environmental sensors as they're called, because they do pick up more than just vape. They'll pick up, chemical smell or whatever. They'll pick up noise, things like that. So they're more than just a vape detector. It's an environmental sensor.
Noise like in chatter or what do you?
Noise like in loud noises, like if there would be some shouting and fighting or something, or there's a loud bang or something, it'll pick it up and notify the administrators on that. Those are in all the middle schools, high schools, Hilliard and Webster. We don't have them in elementaries right now, but those are the workplaces we probably would see and need the most. But that's a part of the safety security that the administrators and everybody in the buildings have. There's a district safety protocol, and this is the document before that Missouri emergency operations tool you guys just approved the other night at the board meeting. This is what we currently have, and that's one of the attachments that I have on there. It gives every different scenario, bomb threat, a tornado, all the different types of emergency responses that we have, our communications procedures, who we communicate with, all the phone numbers from, like a lot of our phone numbers with the cabinet, and a lot of that stuff comes to me first, and then I disseminate to usually the core team of Gabe and the assistant superintendents, maybe a director at elementary or high, middle, whatever it applies to. I might have Elizabeth Chase on there as a counselor coordinator. I may have Tammy Smith-Hinchy on there as for nursing goes. It comes through me a lot of times. Now, I will say sometimes a director like Bethany or Lara might get a call first, and then they shoot it to me, or they shoot it out in a group text, and that we communicate with each other. But a lot of those procedures are in that protocol manual. Again, it's going to be updated, but I did link that, so you feel free to go through that. And if you have any questions, again, it's pretty comprehensive. I think the tool that we're going to put in place is more comprehensive. One of the things I wanted to touch on, Eileen asked me about this. The death of a student is under the communications list on this training. On page 21 of that document, that is an annex, that is a response, and there is a procedure that we follow. What it really involves is there's a staff or student that has passed away. Then Elizabeth Chase, who's the coordinator of counseling and social work, she works with me, she works in my student services department, that she's the first contact there. And the reason she is because counselors usually need to get involved. They also have resources where they reach out to other community resources or area school counselors, depending on the situation and what is needed. death of a student, that's very typical. We are fortunate here in the district, we have other counselors that can come to us, but if we were to pull them, you know, say from Savannah or someplace, you know, just because there may be a high need for students to see and staff to see, you know, counselors and talk to people. So she's the one that really kicks that into gear and organizes that. And again, I would notify, and then I would reach out to the superintendent cabinet as appropriate, so.
So is that, sorry to interrupt you, but
No, you're
is
fine.
that the protocol now?
What's that?
Or is that what's supposed to happen? Or is that
That's the protocol now.
Okay.
That's currently. And I mean, it's happened. We've had that happen in the district, unfortunately, this year, so. So that protocol manual that's really what we go by, and try to stick to as much as we can. Raptor has the visitor management. I didn't mention this the other night, but the visitor management piece, you know, people log, you know, like we talked about visitors, you know, enroll in Raptor, it just tracks visitors. That visitor management system does actually have a panic button, okay? There's a panic button for secretaries to alert administrators, nurse, and then also police department if needed. So within that visitor management, there actually is a panic button, so to speak, to alert other people that may need to assist if they need assistance some way, shape, or form. Now, the alert system that we added the other night, it will then alert, I mean, it's alert to all staff. I mean, it's more of the school-wide communication.
And how does that work? Do they just have to press a button on the app?
Currently?
No, the one that
The one that we're gonna put in place, they would, they go to the app and then they're gonna specify, the administrator usually is gonna specify, write a message, send it out.
And I was gonna ask on the new one that we just voted on, that will be in place for this upcoming school year?
Yes, yes. The Raptor Alert and the Drill Manager will be. The other two, the reunification and accountability, I mean, Raptor's putting in all across the state because that's free to every public school and charter school across the state, so that's their priority. We already had to jump on it because I already talked to them about the other two, and so I'd already had our name on the list, so I'm hoping those two get put in by August. But we have to train. We may wait a little bit because we may, you know, take some time to train administrators and then for them to train staff. But the alert and the drill manager are the first two that would go in. The alert's obviously the highest one because it's the one that's probably we would need the most. We work with Strategos on intruder training. We have mandatory intruder training, and so basically it's a PowerPoint. But every year the principals go through it with their staff. Every staff member, it's all staff. It's not just teachers. It's all staff in the building. Whenever that day is at the beginning of the year, where they have all staff and they go through that with them. What does that involve? It's the 3 outs. It's the get out, lock out, and take out system, okay? The get out is if they can get out, if they know they can get out of the building or get out of this area where there's a threat, they will do that. The lockout is if they need to lock their room. That's the one we practiced in a live scenario situation in February at Lafayette with various staff members. And then the takeout is the scariest, probably the 3. That's if the threat is right there and it's coming into the room and you haven't had time to lock or get out. We talk about what objects now in the classroom can become ways to disable that threat. We hope that never has to happen. And of course, when you're training people and you do train students to an extent, training a kindergarten first grader student is different than training a junior, senior high school. So it's all kind of age appropriate on how now we'll tell you this, that takeout one is not one we commonly train a lot on. It's more talked about with our staff. There's various, reasons why you wouldn't necessarily train every single student on that, but my thinking too is, well, if students aren't trained or somebody's not trained, then the response is going to be it's not going to be appropriate. So there's that fine line of what you do there. But that Strategos intruder training involves those 3 out methods. And we actually implemented this year where not only the staff did a presentation or the principals did a staff presentation, then they scheduled time for the SROs to come to every building. in September, so they answered questions, and the SROs talked about what their response would be and how their response would look. We again did the thing in February we did the live scenarios, and it really is more the lockout scenarios, with actual simunition rounds, from a few department folks that came in and helped train on that, so they could hear what that sounds like in a hallway. I mean, that is I know it's a scary thing, but it's obviously something that needs to be, I don't want it to be too common, but again, they need to identify that, and there's a shock value with that a little bit. Now, that one in February, what we did is it was a part of the PD day that we had, and so people pick and choose that. And so if you were a person that didn't think that you were going to be able to handle that, those are the people that chose that training, okay? There were a lot of campus supervisors, administrators, but there was some, there's all kinds of staff there, teachers, I think there were some custodians, there was all different types of folks. And then the idea was eventually when they went back to their school, they talked to their principal, and if they could connect with an SRO, I encouraged them, I didn't really track it, but I encouraged them to have an SRO come in and talk to their staff about what happened that day at Lafayette. Because there's a lot of people, again, if you do that live, mandatory with every staff member, you've got to have some time for some emotional downtime after something like that, because it's stressful.
And when we went to Bessie Allison, one of the ladies that was part of that was still talking about it like it happened yesterday. She was like,
Yeah,
"You just
it's
didn't
very,
know."
but again, I don't want to force trauma on anybody, but we have to be able to respond. And unfortunately, that's the way society we live in. We
Yeah.
need to have them conditioned to respond at least in some way, shape, or form. So, but that's the Strategos, there's different, when I say Strategos, it's a company that works on security, works on intruder training, works on safety training with schools. We could have them come in. Actually, I talked to a representative. They actually sponsored the training in Mexico, Missouri that myself and three SROs went to. They sponsored it and conducted that training. They will actually come out and I talked to them about possibly coming out this next year and doing training with bus drivers. They do bus drivers. They'll do all kinds of different safety, security training. Obviously, you got to pay for it, but that was one thing that I talked to them about possibly. And that leads me into the last bullet on this slide is bus driving. One thing we are piloting right now, we will have in place is an app through First Student that they have. It's called First View. It's a GPS and guidance and communication system. It is much better than the previous Stop Finder that was up and going, or we tried to get up and going. It worked to some extent, but the district view part of this is nice because just yesterday we had a bus situation where a bus broke down from an activity trip. It was coming in, it was late to get to a middle school, which meant then it was going to get late to get to an elementary school. So they communicated with me, but I was able to get on that view and I was able to see those buses when they came in. I was able to see how, and I stayed in my office and stayed and watched, and they were late leaving Rubidoux, and so I could tell where they were going. It's nice. Stop Finder was just a parent app. The nice thing about this is it's a district view, and then also we haven't enabled it yet because nobody is signed up for it. Parent-wise, they will in the fall. But I can send from that screen. I can send an alert. I could send a communication. This bus is late, and it would go out to everybody that's associated with that bus. We can send it from here. The bus company could send it. They will be trained in it too. So it's a lot more comprehensive than the Stop Finder because it gives us some access. And I'll have principals. We'll train them on it so if they want to get on and they can see it. They can see where their buses are at. So.
On the new app, are only the parents able to get the app? And the reason I'm asking is I have an after-school program.
Yeah.
And there's others in town.
Mm-hmm.
And the old app I wasn't able to get because I was only eligible to get like a school on it, and I have like 9 schools.
Right. That would be something I think we could work with First Student on. I don't know.
Yeah, those people may be able to list you as
Yeah.
as a contact to be able to.
But I can see
We'll have to
where,
look into that, yeah.
yeah, I can see where we can talk to first student, and I think what it comes down to is obviously, you know, student record and student identification, but obviously you have, I mean, they're coming to you, so it's not like you probably don't have that. So having that kind of agreement, I don't know if it's an MOU that we have to sign off and, or some kind of.
Even like those dual cert kids as they're going in and out of like different preschool programs, that'd be nice to have too.
Yeah, that's a good thing to look at, we probably should do that. But the stop finder was only parent,
Yeah.
so that, there was a lot more. This first view, I think, would be a lot more, there's been more options. for
And it's
those.
just the bus, like you're still just tracking the bus. So like
Just tracking.
if my kid, this is not.
Not a kid, we're not tracking the kids.
I just think about like the first day when we're like, did we get everybody where they're supposed to?
Child
We only missed up 2 kids today.
I hate that.
It's on the first day.
Yeah, no, it's only the buses that is.
Okay.
Yeah.
The view that you see, is it kind of like, when you're tracking a package, or is it an actual image, or what do you see?
It's an image, it's like a Google map, I can see streets, I can see
Okay, so you can
actually.
see, like, the bus.
They have a little icon for a bus, and it actually has an arrow right above it to tell you
Oh, nice.
which direction that bus is going. So like, if it's going east, north, south, whatever,
Okay.
it'll, northeast, I mean, it'll, so I actually see a little bus icon that follows streets.
So there's like a tracker
And I can
on
s-
the
I-
bus?
what's that?
There's a tracker on the bus?
Correct.
Okay.
They've installed all those. And then, and we're working through the kinks on that right now. There's some that didn't, and when we first started looking at this in April, we first started kind of piloting this, they weren't all up and running, so I can see that more and more have gotten added. So we're gonna make sure they're all.
Still a little bit part of that transition from Apple to First Student, I think.
Yep.
I think we're still working.
First student is really, and again, that's no cost, that's part of the contract that we have with first student, so. But that is, I think that's a safety feature, I included in this presentation because of that. Any other questions on safety, security? Go to bullying? Fun topic. Okay, so bullying is the second thing I was gonna talk about. You know, I did in this, there's a definition for bullying. That's, I think, the biggest part of bullying in schools and dealing with it is education of what it is, okay? And the education not only of the students, but of parents when they call and they're concerned about it, or they want to talk to administrators about it. You know, it's got really 2 things. There's 2 things you look at, and if it's really truly bullying. There's an imbalance of power, which means maybe a disadvantage of 3 kids versus 1, or so the bully has enlisted bystanders to create an imbalance of power. Now, it could still be one-on-one, and there still might be that imbalance of power. Okay, this is what I'm saying. This is what we train our administrators to look at and look for. The other thing is repetition, or if there is a perceived or pretty good pattern that repetition is coming into place. So those 2 things are the key that we train administrators on identifying bullying as bullying. Because there's a lot of times it's just mean behavior. It's just random mean behavior. Kids aren't nice to each other. So we define that, we train those administrators, and then they train the staff. And then also, what that works through the Olveus program, which was the other attachment that I sent in. There was a presentation, I think last September maybe, that Elizabeth Chase did I think she came to a board meeting and actually did this. So some of you that were on the board then probably saw this, but I actually gave you the PowerPoint again. But it defines the Olveus program. Olveus is the education component. It is what we do with the students, the teachers do with the students in the buildings to inform them. It's about classroom meetings. It's creating a culture of being kind and being respectful. It trains students on, okay, when you're bystanders, what does a good bystander do? Well, when they see somebody being picked on or being mean, don't take the side of the bully, take the side of or go get help. You know, so it trains students on how to react when they see situations. Because in all honesty, that's important, that's the best way to prevent it. If you got a kid that's doing the mean behavior or bullying, they're not gonna do it in front of teachers and staff members all the time. They're gonna do it where they can get away with it. But if you can train students on standing up and standing up as a group if they feel like it, or at least going and telling somebody right away. That's the biggest key. And that's part of that PowerPoint. I won't get into the detail of that. We do a lot of, there is a House Bill 1583 that was in 2016 that was created a law for us to respond to this. There's policy JFCF, which is specifically pertaining to bullying. It was updated in 2021. But the administrator is required to respond within 2 days, at least get the response or the information, and the investigation has to be done in 10 days, school days. So there is the law says and the policy says that we have a timeline. Obviously, we say as soon as possible. We don't say don't wait, but that does give us constraints that and every bullying incident form gets turned into our office. If a principal fills one out and completes it, basically if anybody is accused of bullying or suspected of that, our administrators have to fill that out and they send it to our office and we file them all.
Now, is that tracked? Like, is there some system
So,
that kind of tracks all the?
It's
cases?
also logged in PowerSchool. So under incident investigation, it's logged in PowerSchool. So that can be tracked by any administrator, it can be tracked by us. So not only is the actual form sent in to us and we file it, it's also logged in PowerSchool.
And is Obeys what we used? I know last year we had like a presentation of surveys that were done on bullying.
Yes, the questionnaire,
Yeah,
certainly.
and I know some of them were limited because we didn't survey all the kids.
Mhm.
And I work at an after-school program and we gave them a survey as well, and bullying stood out to me because we were having kids from like K through third grade. They're like, I've been bullied. Almost 90% are like, I've been bullied. So I was wondering, is that something that we're gonna keep doing as a
Yes.
survey?
Yeah, every year, yeah.
Every year?
Yeah.
And how do we ensure that it gets to like, not all the students obviously, because it's hit or miss, but to most, the majority of the students?
Well, we just have to enforce administrators, they've got to schedule time to do it. So between the counselors, administrators, whoever in the building, they have to schedule time to get those surveys done,
Okay.
those questionnaires done.
You made a good observation. I mean, a lot of times kids will call a thing bullying, and that's not always accurate. I mean, a lot of times kids and even adults don't really get the actual definition of like bullying. As you're mentioning about the forms, is it every allegation according to the child or according to the?
We tell administrators that if they say it is bullying, they have to investigate it.
Okay.
So you can imagine
Required by
many,
law.
Okay.
many times it's not. Okay, but that form asks, where did it happen, what happened, why is that person that was reporting term it as bullying, why do they perceive it as bullying? What actions were taken, what were maybe alleged motives, what were corrective action was taken, see, that's a full form of, so yes, they have to complete that. If I say that Kim has been, I report to a principal that Kim has been bullying me, then that's the trigger.
So that if it's not actual bullying, are the admin explaining
Yes.
about bullying and things like that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And they would explain to it in that meeting, that interview with them and talk to them about it, maybe put up, set up a safety plan. How can we keep you safe? So what kind of strategies can we give you so that you're not put in that situation again, repeatedly or whatever? And so they work with them on that, or they may pull a counselor in to help with that.
Okay.
But they try to develop a little safety plan as well.
And Mr. Nolte, when it goes to the PowerSchool under bullying, do the administrators use that kind of metric that you said of, is it happening frequently? Is it a group or individual? Is that what they
Yeah.
use to consider it bullying under the PowerSchool?
Right, you've got tracking abilities to be able to,
So during the investigation, then they come to the conclusion, yes or no?
right,
Okay.
right.
If the bullying happens off of school ground, I mean, is that still something, do we still get involved in it? Or
You can,
do
yeah.
parents still reach out to us, even if it didn't
Yeah.
happen per se on school?
Yeah, and cyberbullying is a big one, obviously, and that is obviously the one that we get that comes off school grounds, because that comes in through social media, but that would be included as well.
If it disrupts the learning environment, then we review your investigation.
Gotcha.
Yep. One other thing, we do have Sprigio, which is an online anonymous tool. Anybody, anytime can get on the website. There's a place on the school website or on the district website. We get them probably, I don't know, once a week. You know, I probably see one of them. I get a copy of them. I usually reach out to administrators, say, please make sure there's a place on there where they see. Now, sometimes it's anonymous, so they have to do some investigating and kind of figuring out what's going on, but at least they're aware of it, and then they were required to make it, check it off as addressed. And then there's notes in there they can put in there. So that's a system that I could pull up. I mean, I can pull it up at any time and see, you know, all the different Sprigio reports that have been filed. So that's an anonymous online tool. That's just another way that they could report it. So
What is it called?
Sprigio, Sprigeo. And that's, unless you have any questions, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Feel free to give me a call or whatever, and we can sit and talk more, so.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
John's, this packet of loose paper, if you read them in that order, that's kind of the order I'll go through them and we'll talk about it a little bit. First of all, the Big Blue Book, the salary comparison study, that was approved by the board in January of '22, so it's about a year and a half old. I provided it mostly just for your information so you can see where we ranked with the districts that were in the study. That's something that I would recommend that the board do every 4 to 5 years, just to make sure that we're keeping as current as we can with the districts that we compete with for employees. If you want the paper copy, you are more than happy to, more than willing, can keep it. If you don't want it in paper, let me know, I can send it to you digitally. And if you don't want to see that many numbers in any form, just don't say anything and I'll take your paper copy.
Dr. Kraus, is this the step one of teacher salary schedule with the districts on the side? Is this current?
That's my next topic. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
That's a great segue. Yes, that's the 22-23. She's referring to this first page in your loose packet. These are 22-23 numbers. I tried to get 23-24, and although ours is done, lots of other districts are not done yet or haven't published them, so I couldn't find for next year. One thing that I do know, obviously, we raised our base to 38.7, and that would put us up, tied with Ray Peck, about in the middle of the sheet. That also makes the assumption, though, that nobody else below us raised theirs, which I know is not true. Anybody care to guess who the highest paying district in the state is going to be next year? Heard this in the news anywhere?
Well, that's what I was going to ask is the raise that Kansas City just approved, is that on here?
No. These are 22-23 numbers.
Okay, because they gave their teachers, I think, a $10,000 raise.
You're talking about Hickman Mills?
In Kansas City?
That's one of the Kansas City districts. Yeah. Okay. Hickman Mills was pretty far down there, two above us at 38,000. They just raised theirs to 46.5. And they had, and you may be talking about a different district that I'm not aware of. Hickman Mills, I know, went from 38 to 46.5, and they did a levy solely for employee salaries. Okay. So while we have, I think, a nice raise, $1,000 is a nice raise to the base, I'm not sure that's going to help us keep pace with what others are doing. Okay. So that's just kind of an FYI type of document. The next three that are in there, I kind of made a mess of in my haste. The first one should have been our salary schedule. Then the next one with lots of pretty colors is Savannah's. And the third one is Park Hills. The reason I included these is I wanted to have you guys kind of think philosophically through what is your goal for funding? What is your goal for salary? If you look at these, every salary schedule rewards something, and it's not always the same thing. A teacher's salary schedule is the same in that as you go down, you get more experience, you get more money, and as you go to the right and get more educational credentials, you get more money. So that's the consistent thing with a teacher's salary schedule. As you move down and across, every teacher's salary schedule I've ever seen pays more. What I wanted you to look at is Savannah's compared to ours, for instance. Savannah's is what I would call a front-loaded schedule. They start above us at 40,000, but their steps going down are smaller and their steps going across are smaller. All right, so that's, by the time you get to year 5 and 6, they start ahead of us, but by the time you get to year 5 or 6, we've caught up, and then we continue to pass them in terms of what we pay. All right. So again, the philosophical question: do we want to entice people to get here? Is that our major focus, or are we trying to keep them for the long term, or are we trying to do both? Hopefully, we're trying to do both, but sometimes you have to pick one or the other. So Savannah's plan seems to be, we're going to pay you more up front, hoping you'll get here and like it and stay, even though at year 5 or 6, you could drive a few miles to St. Joe and make more money. Okay? Park Hills, below that, just glancing at that, and I know I do this pretty much all day, every day, so that this appears obvious to me, it may not to you. What do you think, looking at that Park Hill value? Any guesses?
Maybe it
Education.
Education and getting it
pays
when?
for more education.
Yeah.
It pays higher when you get more certification, or?
Right, and Kim just threw in here too, getting it early. You'll see the lengths of their columns for bachelor's plus 16 are pretty short. Teachers will freeze real quickly in those districts if they don't get more education. Park Hills, incidentally, also in every spot is starting, $2,000 to $3,000 higher than ours, and at the bottom of every column, $5,000 to $6,000 higher. So that's one of the things that we struggle with as we're recruiting. North Kansas City, Lee Summit are very similar in terms of the way theirs are structured. So just something to think about. And I don't have the slightest idea if this was what you guys wanted to hear when you put salary schedules on there. That was on my list. So if it wasn't, tell me what questions you have about salary schedules or anything you wanted me to discuss concerning that.
I have a question. Having a look at the Park Hill schedule, and you mentioned it will freeze after X amount of years over the education. What do you think is a benefit of that?
A benefit of doing it the way Park Hill does? Well, I think all of our teachers will tell you that if they get a master's in education, whether it's a content area or curriculum and instruction or whatever it happens to be, they feel like they're better teachers. So the sooner we can get our own teachers educated at a higher level so they're able to better teach our students, I think it's a win-win, both for the professional development of the teacher and particularly for the instructional efficacy of the kids, that they're going to learn more.
And they're able to make more money faster.
Yeah, one of the things we also would need to consider if we go that direction. I know there are a number of districts who supplement, at least in part, a teacher to get his or her master's. They'll say, we'll pay you X amount per semester to achieve your master's. So there's a cost obviously associated with that, but You know, those are just some of the things I think that fit into the bigger picture of what do we want our structure to look like. So, did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
I don't know if that is something that we should do, just because I can only imagine a teacher who is already struggling, you know, with her classroom and trying to get adjusted to be like, oh, I gotta get a master's in order to, you know, get a certain amount. It just puts a lot of, it can't be easy to be a teacher, live your life, and then try to pursue your master's as well. So I don't.
They design the programming around that.
I'm sorry, what?
I mean, they design master's programs
Right.
around work.
Well, and there hardly is such a thing as an in-person master's program anymore. I mean, everything is online. It has become a lot easier for them to pursue it. It still has a time
Right.
commitment, obviously, and a cost.
But it is a lot easier doing it online.
Yeah, it is.
Which is just wrong for those of us who had to do it in person.
Yeah.
Hey, I did mine in person too, and it wasn't that long ago.
I had 2 years when I
I
was
did a
working-
hybrid.
Yeah. I had 2 years when I was working on my doctorate that I was driving twice a week from Colby, Kansas to Manhattan, Kansas.
Yeah.
That got a little old.
Yeah, that was,
It was just a straight shot though, you
Yeah,
just get on
just-
Oh, in the
70.
end,
Yes,
though,
though.
in the end though, I mean, it's worth it. I mean,
No, what we don't see is like, what is Park Hills and Savannah's turnover rate?
Okay,
How many, like, is this actually working for some of their staff, or are they getting high turnover, or
Yep.
do you have any?
I think I do. Nothing from more recent than this, but
Sarah, what was your question?
What is the turnover rate for Park Hill and Savannah? Because if we're going to kind of, we're not gonna
Yeah.
base our salary schedule, but if these are the two examples, then I want to know, like, is this actually working for a lot of teachers or is it not?
on page 4 in the book there, there's, it's the district demographics page, and column F is 3-year teacher retention rate in all of those districts. That's the closest thing that I have, just right off the top of my head. What other questions do you have in terms of salary schedules? No, I'm only allotted 30 minutes, don't want to go over, we got a lot to talk
I
about.
have another question. I know that there's a committee that goes over these every year. Are they pretty happy about our schedule? Are there concerns? Are there major issues?
Well, I don't know of any employee who has ever come to me and said, you know, I really make too much money. They are well aware that there are districts that in the metro that pay substantially more than we do. I think they are happy with the process. I think they understand that, you know, I think our district has done a fantastic job in the last 3 or 4 years of becoming efficient, which therefore allows as much available money as possible to go to employees. And I think, you know, both Dr. Edgar, when he was in the position, and Dr. Sechrist this year have really done well with streamlining our district so that we can pay as much as possible with the money that we have available. You know, I think Dr. Sechrist has said this before, a lot of times, in order for us to pay more, we either need to have additional revenue, which would come through a levy source, or we need to right-size our district. Right now, we have buildings for 12,000 kids, and we only have 10.3. So there's still some streamlining that can be done in terms of our facilities and how many buildings are we operating, that kind of thing. I think the staff in general were very grateful for the $1,000 raise that we gave to the base. I mean, I've heard a lot of positive feedback about that. But you know, we have a limited amount of money, and it can only go so far.
I think somewhere in this giant book, it talks about like the different free and reduced lunch rates comparatively. So we're pretty comparative in pay, but our free and reduced lunch rate is significantly higher than, you know, who's around us. So I think for us, it's always gonna be important that if we can do things that aren't cost, you know, prohibitive, that we can, and anything that we can do to make their jobs easier, especially with those title schools, is gonna be what we need to focus on.
You know, one thing, Whitney, that we've done, I think, over the last 7 or 8 months, we've built a pretty good relationship with a district that is very similar to us and gathered a lot of really good ideas. And so you make a good point. I think that we can get better that way. Independence is very, very similar to St. Joseph. And I know the academics department talks to them periodically. And I think we need to do more of that to find out what they're doing that's good and also what they're doing that's bad, that's not working, that we can fix it.
Childcare is a huge perk at Independence.
Yeah.
So what I see from the district demographics is the teacher retention rate is not very different. I mean, we're at 56.5, Park Hill is at 54.3, Savannah is at 57.4, so we're not that off. I don't think there's a problem with the salary schedule. I agree, Dr. Krause, that it might be the fact that we have buildings that are under, I mean, they're not really filled up at all, even close to being filled up. And also that we might need to propose a levy to get the teacher's salary higher. I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with the salary schedule, but that's my personal opinion.
Any other salary schedule things you want to talk about? The next part of that was employee benefits, and I just put a one-pager in there. Benefits, especially in terms of insurance, I think is one of the things that we rank very highly in. I think we have a very good plan. It's a very low cost to the employee, and you know, being self-insured, since we went to that, I think we've saved literally millions of dollars, both in administrative fees and just being able to control things ourselves. I always, when I go out recruiting, I always stress it as one of the positives of our district. I do think it's a place where we're very strong. Our balance in our trust fund, our health trust fund is very healthy. You know, so that's one thing I think we need to be advertising, need to be stressing, and you know, continue to do what we're doing there. Does anybody have, you know, it's set up so that an employee can choose one of 3 plans, either an EPO, PPO, or the high deductible health plan at varying costs. The EPO costs the most, the PPO is in the middle, and HSA, or the high deductible health plan, is in the middle. So a person who takes the high deductible health plan has no premiums if they're doing a single policy, and the district also gives almost $200 a month for them to put into their HSA, their health savings account. And that ranks right up there with what anybody's doing in terms of being a benefit to the district and to the employees. Did you guys have specific questions about benefits?
I did. So the HSA eligible, the food saver, HDHP, when it says family, does that cover even if they have like 6 kids?
They have 6, they can have 12, they can have 1.
That covers all?
Covers them all. Yep, any of the family policies cover all dependent children. And kids can stay on their parents' insurance until they're 26.
Wow.
If they don't already have their own.
But then again, that plan for the EPO is very expensive, the family plan.
Anything else in terms of benefits?
Benefits specifically?
Yeah, or something we already talked about, if you had something.
I was just looking at the substitute on page 108, salary convention. I thought we had raised the St. Joe salary.
We did. That book that you have there is for what we were doing in 21, 22.
Okay. I think it shows 95, so I think we went to what, 115?
115. Okay, well, let's, next topic that was on there was process for filling district vacancies. gave you quite a bit of information. The first page is just a general synopsis of where we advertise things, how we go about deciding what to advertise, that kind of stuff. The second page is a list of every college or university in Missouri that has a teacher preparation program. Every year, we contact each of these schools individually. I'm not going around it in person, but we call, talk to the director, and we say, hey, we've got a lot of needs in terms of openings, can you help us out? We give them information, we send them things to post. We get on their websites and look for, who they're graduating, who's available, that type of thing. The page behind that, it's got the pretty green and yellow. That's a list of the career fairs that we attend every year. The two in yellow are new, like this year was the first year I went to the University of Nebraska at Lincoln and to South Dakota State University. That one is a career fair for the entire state of South Dakota. All of you know, nationwide there's a teacher shortage, so we've had to expand where we're going to try to find candidates. For next year, we're looking at expanding into possibly sending somebody to the University of Arkansas because they have a large number of minority candidates. So another way that we can hopefully increase the diversity of our staff would be to go there. And then the stapled document behind that just goes kind of through our recruiting process, through new positions, to applying, to interviewing, to making the job offer, onboarding, kind of an A to Z, here's what happens. I don't want to bore you by reading any of this stuff to you, but I would be glad to answer any questions that you have about just the recruiting process in general. Well, and then obviously we're recruiting internationally now too through a couple of different entities. I think our current international candidate number right now is 30,000.
How do you choose where you attend a career fair at?
Where I personally go or whether the district goes?
The district.
Well, the district, we try to get to as many of them as we possibly can. Sometimes there are two on the same day. And depending on if it's a place where we typically get a lot of recruits from, then we'll send a number of people. Starting this year, and we'll continue to do this, the places where we get the largest number of candidates, obviously Missouri Western, Northwest Missouri State, are where the bulk, the highest numbers, certainly by percentage. And so we always send multiple recruiters there. We always try to send a minority recruiter to those events. Certain ones of them will have, like, Northwest Missouri State has a strong special ed department, so I know DLO or Kara have tried to go to those. We've tried to make some inroads there. Any place where I think we're going to have a large turnout, we send multiple people. If it's someplace that I feel like we need to continue to have a relationship, but I'm only going to see 4 or 5 kids, then I go by myself. But we try to hit as many in Missouri as we can. And like I said, we forage into Kansas a little bit. KU tends to have quite a few therapists, OTs, PTs, BCBAs. And then we went to, like I said, UNL and South Dakota State this year. Those were the only 2 I attended that there were more candidates than there were recruiters, which is a stark difference from 5 years ago. I went to the University of Missouri at Columbia on a Saturday, I think it was April 15th. There were 63 recruiters there and 4 kids came through. So, that's more typical really. That's more the norm than having more kids than recruiters. So, you know, we've reached out, we've hired quite a few student teachers. We've, you know, contacted kids who were doing their junior experience that seem really strong. We've developed a pathway to teaching and expanded the Grow Your Own programs. And so that's, and with the international candidates, that's basically how we're staying afloat right now.
Do you know what other districts are doing?
The same things we are.
Because my daughter's going into elementary education and she's going to UMKC. And at the orientation, it was already districts also there, giving out information and everything like that as well.
Yeah. Well, and on paying student teachers, I mean, we're starting that for this coming year. That's becoming common. So I feel like we're doing most of the same things. Some of the districts in the city have not yet had to go into the international market. I know when I was at the University of Missouri not seeing kids, I was talking with Park Hill and Lee Summit and North Kansas City, and they're not really, they've still got enough applicants that they haven't explored the international market much, but I think that's coming for them too.
So aside, Dr. Cross, aside from the 35 international teachers that we just got that are new, how many new teachers are we going to have for the 23-24 school year?
Well, that's a moving target. I got 2 resignations today. So I would say we're going to fall probably in the 120 to 125 range.
Of new teachers?
And that's, our 5-year average has been 107, I think, so it's a little higher than normal, but not tremendously out of line.
And what about, I mean, maybe I can ask you later, but resignations, is that higher or lower this year?
Well, it's a little bit higher. Well, actually, resignations and retirements is probably pretty steady because the number of openings is also partially due to the fact that we're trying to expand staff in several areas. So there were a couple of openings that weren't caused by a resignation or retirement, but by something new that we're wanting to add.
And the retirement, I mean, that's, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, retirements are going to happen every year, and I think it's a very similar number. Usually retirements will be in the 25 to 30 range, and resignations in the 80 to 85 range. So. What else are you guys interested in?
Are we doing a resignation survey?
We do whether it's a resignation or a
An
retirement,
exit.
we do a survey at the end, an exit interview.
Yeah, so we are doing those?
Yeah, we do that every year.
And we've talked a little bit about that. That was something that got brought up at the superintendent's dialogue meeting. And I think what we'll do is we're going to probably put a report together that the board will see,
Okay.
be a little bit more on the
Yeah, I'd
transparent
like to
side in
know.
regards to that, yeah. So.
Other questions, comments, concerns?
I just, the free and reduced lunch in comparison to the districts, is that, I mean, do you anticipate that being higher? Because I know this is for last year. Do you think it's going to be higher this coming year, or what do you think?
I'm getting some nods from back there, the people who would know, so yes, I think so.
I don't think you're ever going to see a decline,
I don't think so.
just with the population that's moving in. I think it's probably going to continue to increase. And I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see 80 in the next, what do you think, 3 years?
Well, that's, one of the things that Rick pointed out is that the second lowest is 20% different from ours. So I think-
What is it, what is Independence? Is it on there?
Independence isn't on here.
It's close to set, it was close to exactly the same, like that.
So-
Yeah, the schools that are, the districts that are in that book, I developed the ones who were in Buchanan County, obviously because of proximity, West Platte's in there for that reason. And then the places that we tend to lose a lot of people to, which is Platte County, North Kansas City, Lee Summit, Park Hill. As Dr. Edgar mentioned, we've developed a relationship with Independence, and so, anything that we do moving forward will include them. Although there doesn't tend to be a lot of staff transfer between our districts at this point. They are demographically very similar to us. The only other, I guess I do have wellness yet. And I didn't give you a handout for wellness. I came to the board, I don't remember, 4 or 5 months ago. We have a new wellness vendor for this coming year. They're called WellWorks. So far, everything that we've done with them in terms of setup and transition from our old platform has been very successful. The board approved a building wellness champion. I think you probably remember that. I think that was 2 months ago, maybe 3. That individual's responsibility is going to be to, just what it says, to be the person who's looking out for wellness and well-being in their building, encouraging people to participate, coming up with ideas for their building that will increase wellness, just being the champion for those types of activities. And one of the things I'm excited for with WellWorks coming in is they have resources, not only, I think most of us, when we think of wellness, the first thing that comes to mind is, are you in good shape? Physical wellness. But they also have a lot of resources for mental wellness and also for financial well-being, which is another thing I hadn't thought about a whole lot. An extensive library of videos that people can watch, literally hundreds of them. They'll have taped Zumba classes or yoga classes, and if the wellness champion wants to say, hey, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we're going to do yoga after school if you want to come, they can just put the tape in and there it is. So I do think they have a lot of opportunities for us, and it'll be just our responsibility through the wellness champions to get as many people involved in as many types of things as we can.
I like the idea that it's not just physiological wellness.
Right.
So that's kind of nice.
Yeah, I mean, every place has seen an uptick in mental health issues coming out of COVID and that kind of thing.
I have a question about the application process, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Applying online, is it user-friendly?
I think so. We typically don't get complaints about that. Are you hearing complaints?
A little bit. I've never looked at it though myself, and I was just wondering, are there issues with it?
As far as it working, I don't think there are issues. There may be things that people think are not necessary. We really don't ask for any information that isn't either a legal requirement or that will be necessary for us to place them appropriately.
Is it also offered in other languages?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'd have to check on that.
Were you able to get in contact with Sarah Scott?
I haven't yet, no. She's on my list of things.
She'd be awesome.
Okay. Can we get apps in other languages? Sorry, I don't know the answer to that, Tanya, but I'll find out.
Thank you.
Any other questions for me? The thing that I'd like to leave you guys with is I would be more than happy to talk with any of you anytime if you have questions or concerns. Let's address them while they're still young, so to speak. But I never, it's never an imposition on my time. I'd rather visit with you up front, and maybe we can keep something from becoming bigger than it is. But I'd be glad to visit with any of you anytime you want.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna take 5 minutes. We're gonna reconvene at 11:06.